Welcome to today's Energy Central webcast entitled Best Practices in Recruiting Participants for Energy Management Programs. A few housekeeping notes we would like to mention. If you cannot get adequate sound from your computer speakers, you may dial into the audio portion using the telephone number listed in the right-hand panel of your interface under the audio section. Following the presentation, we will have a brief question and answer period. You may submit your questions at any time using the interface on your screen. I'm very happy to introduce today's panel. First, we have Enya Berginger with Pepco Holdings Inc, or PHI. Enya serves the utility as manager of its demand-side management programs. There, she oversees programs and education initiatives to promote reduced energy use during demand peak times. In creating successful customer recruitment campaigns for PHI, she leverages her various skills in marketing, strategic planning, and integrated campaign development, TV, radio, print, and online advertising, and web and social marketing. Enya has earned numerous awards for her marketing and communication programs at Hewlett-Packard, Tucson Electric Power, and now Pepco Holdings. Next, we have Praveen Beggett with Converge. Praveen serves as VP of Marketing for Converge, where he creates the strategy and tactics to help improve utilities in their recruitment for customers for demand response and energy efficient programs. He's developed engaging marketing campaigns for many utility clients, such as SDG&E, Pepco Holdings Inc, Duke Energy, City of Wadsworth, PG&E, Con Ed, PECO, Con Edison, and SMECO. Praveen's recruitment campaigns in the residential and small commercial markets have resulted in 1.5 million participants enrolled in demand response programs, an industry benchmark. I'm now happy to hand the floor over to Praveen to kick off the event. Praveen, welcome to the event. You have the floor.
Thanks, PJ. It's a pleasure to be here today. I want to welcome everyone on the call. We have a lot of people who have called in from the U.S. and from Europe, South America, Australia, Africa, and Asia, I guess. That's great. I hope this session is constructive for everyone who's listening. Please feel free to ask questions via the question box on your screen, as PJ mentioned, and we'll try to get to as many of those, and if we can't, we will respond to them individually. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to sort of outline the flow of this discussion on best practices. I'll begin by introducing Converge. Our focus today will be on demand response in residential and small commercial segments, although some of the learnings that we have are applicable to other industries as well as other segments. I'll share a few points about our experience and the best practices I mentioned, and then I'll conclude by offering a few insights about our success with PHI and invite Enya Berginger to then share her thoughts about the PHI program, followed by some Q&A. All right, well, thanks, Enya. Thanks, PJ, for that slide that you moved up already. That's great. As a leading provider of demand management solutions, Converge actually is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have national and international presence. We have a full portfolio of energy management solutions, technology, and services. But at the heart of our strategy and operational delivery system is the IntelliSource platform. It's a DRMS, we call it the Demand Response Management System, that enables Converge and utilities to perform all key activities for DR programs or demand response programs. It's a system of record. It performs functions like for my team, which is involved in marketing, targeting, segmentation, all registration, dispatch, call center related activities, monitoring, reporting, settlement. Many of the apps that we have developed are delivered through this plug-and-play horizontal platform that is part of our strategy. Traditional demand response provided a simple way to manage peak periods of energy usage, leveraging a one-way demand response program. Today's utilities have changed. Their needs have changed. They need more predictive, reliable, measurable, and accountable solutions. So we have a portfolio of energy management solutions that enable two-way, real-time communications between utilities and customers, providing the insight and control needed to optimize energy use. So it's not just about reducing energy load during peak periods. We're talking about solutions that cut costs, allow for informed decision-making, better energy control, insights into problems that require maintenance, more predictable energy load, rapid and flexible response to changing conditions. It'll probably be best if I take a few examples and give you some idea about the solutions that we have introduced. Dynamic pricing is a great example. With all the AMI rollouts happening across the country and the world, many utilities are looking into dynamic pricing to be part of their pricing and offer portfolio. Our solution, we call it Smart Price, includes the integrated software, hardware, and services that helps utilities manage all types of dynamic pricing programs, including time of use, critical peak price, real-time pricing, peak time rebate. Customer engagement is another great example where the customer needs have changed. Today's customer is different than the yesteryears. There's a segment of population within the utilities customer base that wants to play a bigger role in their energy usage decisions. And of course, there are a lot of things that's a rapidly changing world with a lot of disruptive innovations coming, a lot of players kind of introducing new services and offerings that were not there in, I guess, even a few years ago. So they're looking for engagement, and so we actually built our solution, which we call Smart Consumer. This is something we've built from the ground up with mobility, flexibility, and convenience in mind for the customers. Customers actually receive a dashboard full of tools, helpful applications that help them manage their energy, normative comparisons, see how they're doing, usage versus their neighbors and others with similar kinds of homes, personalized and actionable tips right in their smartphones. It's convenient. It enables them to manage their energy wherever they are in the world and adjust settings and remotely manage some of the settings in their home. So that's that's an area where we think there's a lot of activity already going on in a lot of different industries, including banking and other industries where customers are, industries are looking to create engagement. So why should utilities stay behind? And I think it's almost a need for at least a segment of the population that wants that engagement. Retail device aggregation. Now, this is a nascent trend. It'll pick up steam over time, but there are a lot of new players in the utility footprint that are introducing devices. Typically, the utility used to introduce, especially for demand response programs like thermostats and such. These are Wi-Fi enabled stats that have been introduced by cable companies and I guess telephone companies and other device manufacturers who are providing these devices and then enabling the customers to access their devices. And I think the challenge for the utility, and actually an opportunity I would say, is to how to access that latent load potential that's sitting out there with diverse retailers and cable companies and providers. So Converge has made it easy for the utilities by providing a software solution that we can actually tap into those different providers and provide a reliable, predictable load to the utilities. And I think that's done seamlessly, and that's an additional load that the utility has access to. So that's an app that we are very proud of. Optimization, last thing on that I will say in this segment is with the proliferation of two-way devices, constant telemetry that's available, and that has enabled a more surgical approach to dealing with load reduction and essentially targeting those areas which need load reduction in a utility's footprint, certain hot zones. So instead of using a sledgehammer approach of issuing a demand response signal that impacts everybody, why not target those zones that require the load reduction, rather than the sledgehammer approach. So a surgical approach is better. It's more satisfying to the customer. It's exactly what the utility wants, and I think so we have the capability to provide just that. Now, some of the products and services that are listed here, we'll talk a little more about them when we go through any other section. So I don't want to be redundant. So we can certainly kind of move to the next slide. But we have installed about 6 million devices across the country and the world, recruited 1.5 million customers, and we service about 500 utilities. So I wanted to actually get into the meat of what we do. And in telemarket, that's the name of my team within Encumbered. We are an in-house ad agency focused specifically in the energy sector. Our services are branded as in telemarket. And we help utilities develop, launch, and manage their demand response and energy efficiency programs throughout the life cycle. So when we were thinking about, so what exactly do we do and how do we talk about it, we researched and we said, okay, so there are 4 things that we want to talk about. And the 4 things that we do for our utility clients, first one is market research. Essentially here we have a group of PhDs and analysts who actually analyze and look at data, do a lot of primary research if that's needed, or secondary research, but actually look at the data, usage data, look at what kind of program, demand response program is needed for meeting a certain market penetration goal, and essentially guide and help utilities figure out if that decision has not been made as to what kind of program will help them meet their load reduction goals within a certain time frame. Okay. Next, we have market planning and execution. So here's a capability that we have developed within Encumbered. We have recruited the right kind of marketing professionals that develop the marketing plans, do the analytics, targeting, channel tactics that are needed, positioning and segmentation work that's needed, develop the experience working with the utilities marketing team, and then we document that marketing plan, get it blessed by the utility, and then we actually help them execute that. So I think the difference between an ad agency and what we do at Encumbered is an ad agency will say, well, here's the campaign that we think would work, and let the utility then implement that. At Encumbered, we actually not only do that, but we then help implement it and then make changes as necessary. So we are right there with the utility in helping them execute those plans. Next, we have sales outreach as part of our telemarket team. And this includes professionals who are actually responsible for doing the outreach. And there are certain times when we actually do need to do outreach, education-based marketing, especially if the program is complex. If it were a commodity and everybody knew exactly what it is, that was one thing. But there are times when the goals are extremely high, and it becomes really important to reach those market penetration goals to actually go out in the field and educate the prospects and enroll them in programs. This is especially true for the small commercial segment, but we have seen recently in the residential segment, depending on market penetration goals, that is extremely useful as well. Finally, but certainly not the least, creative services. That's the next component of our telemarket portfolio, where we have creative folks that we have hired from across the country. Now, these are individuals who have worked with ad agencies, and includes people like Director of Creative Services, writers, designers, people who actually are editors, who are professionals in the field and develop campaigns adhering to the utilities' needs and their style guide, and then kind of develop those and then launch those. I would say that that kind of completes the discussion on the telemarket. If you go to the next slide, we have we have completed about 1.5 million enrollments in the demand response and energy efficiency programs. And of course, this number doesn't include what the utilities have done on their own based on some advice that you might have given. These are programs, these 1.5 million customers we recruited were based on actually working with utilities side by side and helping achieve these enrollments. One of the things I'd like to say here is that, especially relevant for U.S., there's an innate cultural resistance in this market, and some of the listeners in U.S. would especially understand that with prosperity comes consumerism mentality and a libertarian sensibility of don't tell me what to do. Now, of course, not everybody is like that, but a large portion of the customer base potentially has that, don't tell me what to do. And electricity for most Americans seems to be plentiful and cheap. So, again, I think I'd like to mention here is that in some other countries, we understand varied cultural sensibilities that need to be factored in. But in the U.S., certainly, that sensibility is there. And then there's a little bit of resistance. But yet, despite that, we were able to enroll 1.5 million American customers to join us. How did we convince them to willingly participate in demand response programs? Keep in mind that we're asking them to accept rising temperature in their homes or workplaces for a few hours on the hottest days when their instincts tell them to turn off their ACs to escape the heat. So the right answer and the bottom line is that it is because of marketing and it's because of smart segmentation. It is comprehensive data analysis. It's looking at tactical targeting and positioning and carefully customized, customer engagement strategies. There's an adage that is build it and they will come. And certainly that will work if the customers are educated up front, if the program is structured right, and their expectations are set correctly. And we know that a well-executed marketing mix, it touches the customers throughout the program life cycle. So that's the power of marketing and being able to convince customers to join programs like demand response. Let's go to the next slide, CJ. Thanks. I want to take a brief moment and talk about our marketing portfolio. At any given time, my team is involved in about 12 to 15 clients and utilities that we are helping implement their marketing plans. And in this particular slide, we are viewing our portfolio through the lens of a maturity cycle or stage of life cycle where that program is or where that utility is with their demand response or energy efficiency program. So the way the slide is structured is on the left-hand side on the bottom, we have what we call the launch phase. That's where we are either building the program in collaborating with the utility, or we are actually capturing, just launching the program. It's just in its infancy and it's in an initial phase of being launched. The second phase is the growth phase. That's where we are capturing the low-hanging fruit, targeting individuals in different demographic segments. And then we reach that point where maturity, the awareness is high and the utility still has goals to meet. And the market penetration goals could be 40, 50, 60%. So that's when we have to deploy different tactics in reaching those customers and convincing them, because so far they have not participated. What will it take for them to now participate? Is it better positioning, better targeting, different incentives? So all those tactics come in play at this point. Finally, I think the last quadrant you see there are programs where we have either met the enrollment goals or the program is completed and finished. And and we have reached, at the end of the program. The other way to look at this portfolio will be through the lens of what type of program is involved. For example, is it like we have a turnkey operation with, where Encumbered is paid for itemized services that we provide. It could be marketing services, measurement and verification, equipment that we provide, our software suite of services, or such. So I think that's one way of looking at a turnkey operation. The other way of looking at the customer base is through the lens of there are certain programs which we call virtual peaking capacity programs. Now, these are programs where Encumbered takes the risk, and we implement the entire program on behalf of the utility with their approval, of course, but we get paid based on the megawatts that we deliver. It's a pay-for-performance program, and if we don't deliver, we don't get paid. But because we are confident we have done this, we are able to understand what it takes to get to a certain market penetration or a megawatt goal. And in those cases, we take the risk and take the risk off the utility's hands. Some are pure energy efficiency programs. Some are energy efficiency and DR. I mean, I know that there's a convergence taking place between DR and EE, and I think that's where there are certain programs that are like that. Some are dynamic pricing programs, which are time of use, residential real-time pricing, critical peak, PTR. So we have done them all. With all that said, I think today our focus is going to be on the marketing that we have collaborated with the 5 Pepco holding jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So with this background of having acquired 1.5 million customers, diverse programs across the country, we have been able to identify some what we could consider best practices. These are practices we correlate with successful programs. Coincidentally, in March, Encumbered released an article in smartgridnews.com that we invite you to check out. It's titled 5 Best Practices to Engage Customers for Residential Demand Response. So let me just briefly describe what they are. And the first one is analysis. And essentially, what we are talking about here is that we need to understand the customer. We need to understand the usage to be better able to target them, understand what segment they are in. Is it a low penetration goal or a high penetration goal? That really depends and determines how deep the analysis goes. But it kind of is important to understand the customer base. So that upfront analysis helps fine-tune the targeting and positioning. Choice. What kind of equipment, what kind of cycling, what kind of different incentives, if there are going to be any, will be offered? How many choices will be there? Will it be a one-choice program, or will there be series of choices? Will they be introduced gradually? Will they be introduced all in one shot? All these things need to be factored in, and I think one golden nugget that I can share is that choice is important, but too much choice can be overwhelming. And in our desire to actually provide flexibility and a lot of choice to customers right from the get-go, generally doesn't work very well. It works very well if it is gradually introduced. Channels. Another important element of the 5 best practices. I think the right way to think about channels is that it depends on what the market penetration goals are. If the market penetration goals are very low, you can get away with channels that are low cost, certainly that are, an aerial campaign, reaching out customers through telemarketing, email, social media. All those things could be used, but when your market penetration goals are extremely high, 40–50% range and beyond, then a lot of different channels come in play, because there is no silver bullet in terms of channels. There are a lot of different channels that need to be deployed in order to meet the goals. and to reach different segments of the population. Education. Another good point that we have noticed is that customer dissatisfaction occurs when we didn't set the right expectations up front. So transparency is important to be able to tell the customer what they will experience during the participation in this program. That is critical. I think if we don't do a good job there, that leads to a lot of dissatisfaction, which is ironic because I think it's a good way to engage with the customer. You know, we have found that demand response programs actually get a lot of customer satisfaction for the utility. It seems kind of not very logical, but I think when the customers realize the utility is doing something and responsible in a responsible way, they get more engaged, they feel more satisfied. But again, then there is a segment of population that's not going to trust anything the utility says. So I think there's a way to handle that, and I think the education aspect is critical. Finally, partnerships. Here's what we have found. We have found that forward-thinking utilities embrace and take ownership of their relationship with regulators and key stakeholders. You know, that partnership is so critical, and that partnership can come in really handy when the market penetration goals are extremely high, or when the program has not been structured and it is being structured. And I think right from the get-go, I think if utilities identify the key players, identify the stakeholders, and then build a strong relationship with them, that'll take them to a long way and get them ready for success. Next slide, please. And this is my last slide before I hand it over to Inya. The PHI EnergyWise Rewards program is less than 5 years old. It has already achieved 300 megawatts, roughly 300,000 participants, and more than 50% market penetration. And by any standards, those are awesome achievements. Achieving a 50% market penetration in less than 5 years. Think about your own, respective utilities and see how many customers you have. And in order to install on half of them who have central AC, that's a pretty daunting task. And what we are proud of is the partnership that we have had with PHI since day one. PHI has been an excellent partner in every respect, and of course we share great pride with them in these accomplishments. And what is interesting is that the program's success has not gone unnoticed by the industry. PHI won the Platts Global Energy Award last year, and then in 2014, PHI won the Power Grid International Project of the Year Award. Anyway, so with that, it is now my privilege to turn the presentation over to PHI's Manager of Demand Side Management, Inya Berdinger. Inya, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks so much, Praveen. So clearly, Praveen has set the groundwork for a partnership that has helped PHI, Pepco Holdings, achieve fantastic results in our demand response programs and also a number of other energy management programs. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those. If you can, next slide, please, PJ. First of all, just a little introduction about Pepco Holdings. For those of you who are in other parts of the country may not know, we're based in the Washington, D.C. area, but we also service Maryland and Delaware and Atlantic City Electric, which is the southern half of New Jersey. These four companies merged together about 13 years ago and formed Pepco Holdings, and we now serve a population of about 5.6 million people total. We do offer these programs that we're going to talk about today here in all jurisdictions. Next slide, please. What we have in Maryland, we offer a wealth of energy management programs. In Maryland, Maryland has very aggressive energy reduction targets, as do many of your states. We are challenged with reducing per capita energy consumption by 15% by the year 2015 compared to a 2008 benchmark. and we're actually meeting those goals in almost all aspects to this point. We're about getting ready to go into the planning cycle for the 2015 through 2017 program, energy efficiency and energy reduction programs. But so right now we have a whole list of programs, as I've listed over here, under Maryland, and I won't go through all of them, but all of them are energy reduction programs. In Delaware, we offer both this EnergyWise Rewards program as well as a peak energy savings credit, which is a dynamic pricing program. In the District of Columbia, we offer only EnergyWise Rewards. There are other energy savings programs being offered in the district, but they are by a different entity and not by us. In New Jersey also, in the southern half of New Jersey, we offer EnergyWise Rewards only at this stage. I will say that all of our jurisdictions have AMI meters installed or are nearing the process of being completely being installed in all the jurisdictions except for New Jersey. So that, of course, is facilitating some of our energy management programs in here. Next slide, please. So I wanted to focus particularly on, out of that wealth of energy programs that we do offer, I wanted to focus on one that Praveen alluded to, EnergyWise Rewards. This is our voluntary direct load control program. We do offer it in all of our jurisdictions, as I mentioned, and the way it's structured is that customers get this free technology, either a free programmable thermostat or a switch that we install on their outdoor air conditioning compressor, and in exchange they receive credits off of their bills for allowing us to curtail their consumption for very brief periods during peak load times. We do offer a unique device and cycling level option strategy in different territories. They're all, of course, approved by our various regulatory bodies, and so they're different in each jurisdiction. We do offer the smart thermostat or the outside control switch in all of our jurisdictions. And one of the benefits that we love about the thermostats is that customers can remotely program their own thermostat from the web no matter where they are. If they're traveling on vacation or on a business meeting or whatever, they can change the settings in their AC via the online portal that we have available to them through our My Account page through the utility site. Next page, please. So this is a little bit to give you an idea of the breadth that we've already been able to enroll in participating in this program just since 2008, as Praveen mentioned, when we first launched the first one in just our first jurisdiction, and then over the years have added additional programs in different jurisdictions rounding out the offer. At this point, we have the fourth highest number of participants of any direct load control program with any utility in the U.S., and by 2015 we expect to raise to the third highest number of participants in the country. As Praveen mentioned, that is no small achievement. There have been a lot of people working very hard on this effort. Next slide, please. So this next slide gives you an idea of the, this is a little confusing until you realize what the blue lines represent is the length of time that the programs have been in the market, and the red line represents the number of installations that have been achieved during that time. So what this is saying is that, yes, there are many, many direct load control programs offered by utilities across the country that have been in existence far longer than us, and some that have achieved higher installation rates than we have, but nobody's done it as quick as we have for the short amount of time that we've been in the market to have this number of devices installed. And that's involved to all the best practices that we're going to, that's due to all the best practices that we're here to talk about today. So I'm not here to toot our horn, I'm here to show you the results that you can achieve with really terrific implementation of your marketing practices. Next slide, please. So this is in somewhat going to mirror, just for a second, the things that Praveen talked about. Really, the 5 things that you need to focus on. Analysis or research is truly key. You have to understand your demographics of your customers. You have to understand the requirements of your of your regulators. You have to understand a whole lot of aspects of the program before you can even start. You have to understand the channels. You have to use an appropriate mix of channels when you're out there communicating with your customers. We've listed here just about direct mail, web. Having a dedicated call center for it is a key factor. Having social media, using social media, just traditional advertising, door-to-door recruitment. There's a whole lot of factors. The point is you need to very carefully analyze which channels are going to be appropriate, and we're going to talk about a number of those channels here going forward in a couple of slides. Education, you have to build an appropriate set of expectations with your customers, as Praveen said. You have to clearly articulate your message for customers. You can't make it confusing because people will just set it aside and not respond if they don't understand what it is that you're asking for them to do. You have to give them a call to action. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to pick up the phone and call you? Do you want them to respond via a website? Do you want them to fill in this postcard and send it in? How do you want them to respond? What do you want them to do? You have to include all of that in your educational campaign. Choices. You do have to give them choices of things that they can have options, how they can participate that most suits their particular lifestyle or their particular situation. And as Praveen also said, partnerships are truly key. If we didn't have a great collaboration with our regulators and with stakeholders that are also engaged in our industry and in our region, we would be fought every inch of the way, and we would not be able to achieve the success that we've had so far in engaging a lot of customers in these programs. Next slide, please. So going to that first point, research truly is key. You have to understand you have to research your marketing, you have to research for your processes, and you have to research all along the execution phase also. You need to understand the psychographics of your customers. You need to understand what's going to help them to respond. You can do segmentation research that helps you to know that. There are published studies out there that will help a lot. You can also conduct your own through your utility or through your organization. You need to research your messaging themes to understand that they're getting through to customers and the customers aren't confused. Here's a little sample, a little example. When we were first rolling out these programs, we offer our customers incentives through bill credits. Now, those of us in the industry know that a bill credit is a good thing to a customer because it means they're paying less. What we found through researching the messaging themes is that customers thought we were charging a credit, charging something onto their bill, much like they get a credit card bill. So they were thinking more about the credit card bill, which is not a good thing in their mind, versus a bill credit, which is a good thing. So we just changed the messaging slightly to say a credit off your bill, and that confusion stopped. But we would not know that if we had not researched the messaging to find out what's working and what's not. And there are a number of ways you can do that. Also, there are portals that you can do some quick. There's a lot of good canned research. Converge can help you with different research. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You need to analyze what the response levers are. Are they going to respond better to a 50% cycling offer, a 75% cycling offer, a 100% cycling offer? How are they going to respond best? And if you see that they're not responding at all, then you clearly know that we have to change some things, and you can research out there to find out what needs to be changed. You need to understand your customer mindset. Are they going to engage with you at all? Are they interested in energy savings, or are they interested in money savings? And those are two very different levers that you can pull in your marketing communications to address their concerns the most. And then again, researching what are the most active channels in your region. In our region, we have a lot of different television stations, and we have a lot of TV stations that overlap, that the same message goes out to a number of different jurisdictions where the offer might be different. So we have to be very careful in the channels that we select, that they really are the most effective for our customer base for that particular market. Next slide, please. So I wanted to point out here, and those of you who have been involved with marketing or communicating any programs at all, this is a no-brainer to you, but you really do need to adjust your materials to be specific to the target market. If you're going to the residential market, your materials need to be very engaging. They need to be colorful. They need to have information on them, but they need to be inviting in a good way for people to just want to open up that envelope or want to look at that TV ad or they want to listen to that radio spot. You need to have it, very engaging and very upbeat and positive for customers. If it's a business, if the business is your key target, of course, they just want no-nonsense facts. They want to know how this is going to help my business's bottom line. If they are in an apartment community, which is what a multiple dwelling units, and in our area we have a lot of master metered communities also, apartment buildings, condominium buildings, where there's just one meter in the building and then that services all of the different units of residences that live in that building. But you really want to focus on that this is a good something that is good for the community, and that everybody in your community, in your individual community, is going to benefit from this. So really emphasize the community aspects of your offer in any materials for those sorts of residences. If you're talking to large commercial and industrial customers, again, they're very targeted, they're very oriented towards facts and research, so you want to put almost white papers out that help customers understand in that target market how these programs can benefit their organization. Next slide, please. You do really want to keep your offer as simple and as easy to understand as possible. And I will tell you that this is part of our challenges in our jurisdictions is in none of our jurisdictions is the offer the same. And it's probably more complicated for my team to keep straight all the different things that are offered in the various different jurisdictions. But two samples that I just wanted to share with you here. In our Atlantic City, New Jersey, in our Atlantic City Electric program in New Jersey, we offer one simple program. It's one cycling option, 50% off, and that is it. And they get only an installation credit of $40 when we install the device. That's the whole program. That's the offer. They do have their choice of either a programmable thermostat or an outdoor switch, but it's a super simple program, and we've had a high percentage of acceptance rate for that offer. In most of our other programs, it's far more complicated. We do have 3 levels of cycling that we offer to customers, a 50%, 75%, or 100%. And of course, if any of you don't know what that means that for a 50% option, we cycle it that their compressor will operate 50% of the time it did just prior to the event. So basically 15 minutes out of every 30 minutes during the time of the event. 75%, it would run for 22 minutes out of every 30 minutes during an event. And 100% cycling, it would run the whole time. I mean, it would be off the whole time. The device would be curtailed during that whole time. We also offer different amounts of awards depending on which cycling level that they select, and that's all a little bit confusing to people if they have to make all of these choices up front. So we have learned over time to just roll out just the 50% option in our initial marketing materials, and then over time we offer them to upgrade to 75% or 100%. We do participate in our RTO market. We happen to be in the PJM market, and so we do participate in those bids. So of course, the more demand capacity we can provide into that market, the better. But for the customer, the shorter time we'll turn off their air conditioning during the summertime is better. So we try to reach that balance of recruiting them in at the lowest level possible, and then over time invite them to upgrade to a higher percentage, which is what we really need for our PJM market. Next slide, please. So this slide seems like a lot of check marks on it, and it is, because I wanted to tell you that the best way that you're going to get success in a program is to truly have a very integrated campaign. You need to sit down before you even launch a campaign or before you go out there and think through what are going, and do your research that we've talked about earlier, what are going to be the best tactics for you to use to reach different markets in your customer base. Do you want to send direct mail? Do you want to send letters? Do you want to outbound call? Do you want to do TV advertising? Do you want to do print, radio advertising? Are there a lot of billboards in your area? Is it better to use community outreach where you literally go and talk to different community groups? Social media, of course, is a big one today. Then you want to plan what times of the year are optimum for reaching your various targets using these various tools. So literally set yourself out a chart. If you don't already have one, it'll be your best friend, of what tactic you want to do when. Now this, of course, does not get down to the level of any creative that we develop for each of these tactics, but this is just to say that we do want to use this tactic during this month. This is an optimum time of year to do this. And this is literally, it's a graphic representation of exactly what our marketing chart looks like. Ours has a lot more detail on it. And I will tell you that I was talked out of sharing exactly that chart with you on here because it's so much detail you can't actually see what any of the details are. But this gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Do spend a little bit of time or a lot of time up front planning what you want to do when, and then execute to that plan. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you a couple of samples of some actual material that we have used, and the key message here is that it is branded. Hopefully all of your organizations have a brand strategy for your utility or for your organization, and stay on that brand strategy. You want to teach customers what they're looking for in any materials that it might be associated with this program. For Pepco Holdings, we have a number of different offers out there, of course, to customers that don't have anything to do with our energy efficiency programs or our energy saving programs. So Pepco Holdings has developed a brand strategy that includes specific colors only for this program. So that means when customers get anything about this program that is in that green and the yellow, then they're going to associate it with this program. But another key factor is Pepco's brand happens to use the individual customer faces in their materials, and that's very inviting. But whatever your brand happens to be, it's totally fine. Just be sure and keep all of your materials within brand strategy so that you can teach customers what to expect when they see this look and feel that they expect from your utility. They're going to know that it's something having to do with the utility and with your programs. I just wanted to, here's a couple of samples here. We do use bill inserts, we do use emails going out, we do use direct mail, still we do use newspaper ads. These are some of the printed ones that I could easily add to a slide here, but you'll see they all have a common look and feel. Next slide, please. Where'd it go? My next slide hasn't pulled up yet. Let's see, here we are. So I wanted to talk about some fairly unique tactics that we have employed also that have really gotten good results outside of the standard TV advertising and radio advertising and direct mail. We have customers that are moving into the territory all the time. Those of you who work for utilities have the same. So we have developed, if you will, a welcome to the neighborhood packet that we send out to customers, to new customers after they sign up for service. We try to get this to them within 3 months of when they first sign up for service with us, let them get settled in. And of course, everybody wants to save money on their electric bill, so we just share with them that this is one of the ways that they can save on their electric bill with their new utility. We've found through research that most customers actually really appreciate the utility telling them how that they can basically spend less for electricity, so we want to help them. This new customer letter, we get a high response rate. We get probably 6 to 8% response rate from this letter, and those of you in marketing know that that's pretty high for a direct mail response rate. Next slide, please. Another unique tactic that we do in this program, as Praveen mentioned, as programs mature, our direct mail doesn't work so much anymore. People stop responding to it, and we have found that sending door-to-door representatives out there to recruit customers into the program is an extremely effective way to involve them. We send representatives out who can educate customers. We have a very specific script that has been developed that they're required to stick to. We have a very specific uniform that they're required to wear when they're out there talking to customers. We don't want customers confusing them with any other organization. We don't want customers thinking that they're part of a scam organization, so they must look official. They must wear their ID badge. That is, that actually our utility generates those ID badges for them, but it's to let customers know that they are legitimate and that they are associated with the utility and they're not a scam. So to help facilitate that, that door-to-door recruitment effort, we do send postcards out about a month before we anticipate that reps are going to be in a specific zip code area, and just letting customers know that we're going to be in your neighborhood, so please don't slam the door in our face. We really are there to tell you about a way that you can save energy and money off of your bills here in the future. And we found that these warm-the-door postcards are extremely helpful. Next slide, please. So in Pepco Holdings, we have, like some utilities across the country, we are also rolling out a new dynamic pricing program that is a result of our AMI meters, where we can help customers save money by reducing their own consumption during peak savings times, during key, high usage time periods. We call that program, we have branded that program Peak Energy Savings Credit. So in reality, Peak Energy Savings Credit and our EnergyWise Rewards programs are extremely similar. It's just that both of them, we ask customers to reduce their consumption during peak energy use times. Just one, we'll do it for them, and in the other one, we ask them to do it themselves. So to minimize customer confusion, we have embarked on a joint campaign, what we have branded as, we have called 2 Ways to Save, and that way we clearly define what the 2 different offers are, and customers can participate in one or both. But in order to launch that campaign, we needed to integrate the graphics to be consistent with the branding that we had already had a lot of brand equity with in our EnergyWise Rewards program. So we merged the blue color of the Peak Energy Savings Credit Program and the green kind of moneyed background color of the EnergyWise Rewards Program in all of our materials to help facilitate that customer familiarity with it all. But this brand look and feel will follow through now in all of the materials for both of the programs as we launch them out there, just to help minimize customer confusion that yes, these are related, and yes, they're both from your utility, and yes, they're both here to help you save money. Next slide, please. The results of this joint campaign have been extremely strong. Again, back to the research, right? So we did we did surveys following each energy-saving event that we had last summer, and we found that there was an extremely high awareness and that a very high interest in participating in the program in the future, even for those that said they did not participate last year. 80% of our customers said that they were familiar with the program, which is very key after just 1 year of education. More than 2/3 of the customers who were the program said that they did reduce their energy on our first, what we call peak savings day. So that is the, the curtailment event that we hold to reduce their consumption on peak days. Most customers did plan to participate in future peak savings days, and I like this quote that one customer specifically offered during the research, and that was, saving money and energy is important to me. This program is a simple way to do both. And this is an actual customer, this is not a plant. So guess what, we're using this language in some of our marketing materials here for this year. We know that this is really important to our customers because they're telling us that, so we want to use it. So that was the end of my prepared remarks. I will be free to take comments and questions in just a moment, but right now I'm going to move it back to Praveen.
Thanks, Anya. That certainly presented a fuller picture for everyone out there. I know, and I've seen a lot of questions come through. But to your last point, testimonials are great, and I think that's a great example of how, as the program matures, how you change tactics and leverage what works. And yeah, you talked about the 5 different jurisdictions, and there were 2 questions that came in talking about that as to why certain programs have achieved more versus lower. But I think let me broaden the question, which is there are 5 jurisdictions. EnergyWise Rewards has been introduced in each. So what were the challenges you were talking about that you faced and your team faces as you are managing these programs in these different jurisdictions?
Thank you. That's a terrific question. And really the primary challenge is just in keeping the logistics or the different requirements of the different programs straight in everybody's mind, and also keeping them straight for our customers. We live in a jurisdiction where state borders are very close to each other, and the radio waves and the TV waves travel back and forth. So, for example, we have an offer in D.C. that has, in the District of Columbia, that is slightly lower remuneration than it is in Maryland, which is right across the border. So we have to be careful with our advertising to very, very, very carefully call out that this offer is for Maryland, for customers who live in Maryland, or this offer is for customers who live in the District of Columbia. We can't just say the EnergyWise Rewards program. We have to say the EnergyWise Rewards program in Maryland, or the EnergyWise Rewards program in the District of Columbia, so that customers don't get confused as to what their offer is. But that is the main offer. And to answer the question as to why they're different in different jurisdictions, and why have we achieved different success rates in different jurisdictions, the success rates are partly due to, programs are launched at different times. So some of them have just been out there. We've been marketing longer than others. And some of them are pretty new, so we're still working towards achieving our installation targets. But part of it is it's just a different demographic in each market, and this is what I was talking about earlier. You really need to understand who your market is and who your target is, who your audience is. In the District of Columbia, we have a lot of transient people who move in and move out with the changes of administration. So people live in here for 3 or 4 years and then move out. So new people are moving into that, maybe that home after that. So we need to market yet another time to the new residents who are living in that home afterwards. In Delaware, on the Delaware beaches and on the Maryland beaches, we have a high population of summer vacation homes, and people don't want to be inconvenienced to have their air conditioning turned off even for short periods of time while they're there on vacation. So that's a very different marketing message and a very different marketing approach than folks who live in their home, in their home all the time. And so those are part of the challenges that we face in reaching the very different demographic groups in the different programs that we offer in the different jurisdictions.
Great, thanks. That was an excellent response. I think it just shows the complexity and a lot of zigging and zagging that's needed, and a lot of operational support that goes, that's the underpinning of the success of any program. I see we are out of time, and I'm sorry that we couldn't get to a lot of the questions that are really great questions, and I think what we'll have to do is to get back to those individuals. You see our email IDs here. Please feel free to ask them. I don't want to continue going over the time that we have been allotted. So I think we should be able to get back to your individual questions. PJ, thank you, and I'll now turn things over to you.
Thank you, Praveen and Inya. Great presentation. For our audience, we hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. As you log off, please take a moment to complete our survey and to give us your feedback so that we can continue to provide you with quality content. Thank you for attending today's presentation. We're now concluded.